Your narcissistic parent isn't your best friend. It took a long time for me to realize that my relationship with my mother was not that of two best friends. Sometimes I even felt like she was my platonic soulmate, someone that no one else could understand but me, the only person who could ever understand me, who could ever be like me. But after moving out and creating some distance from my mother, I've realized a lot of things about our relationship was actually very unhealthy and disturbing. I mistaked our relationship for a best friendship because of the small moments that we had together that were nice, that were happy, that were almost like an adventure. But narcissistic parents intentionally create these adventurous situations in order to create enmeshed relationships with their child because they know the power of an enmeshed relationship. They know that they could potentially keep you under their control until the day that you die. They know the power of their actions even though they act naive. Everything is intentional with a narcissistic parent. You can't mistake it as a coincidence with them. Nothing is a coincidence in narcissism. Everything is a ploy for control. Everything is a strategy to make sure that you never are released from their grip. And in some of the darkest cases, a lot of their actions are actually trying to set you up for failure in life. My relationship with my mother completely fell off when I moved out of the house. Actually, anytime that I did something that she wasn't approving of, she discarded me like trash. It was like our best friendship had dissolved into dust or evaporated into thin air. This relationship especially fizzled in moments where I started being my own person. Narcissistic parents will often create a lens within your own mind of their opinions and their perspective. You will always see things from their perspective before your own. That is a tactic to make sure that you never know yourself. You're never quite sure what is your opinion versus theirs. But trust me, once you get older, it's pretty easy to figure out what was their opinion. It's usually the bad opinions. They create this environment on purpose. Narcissists only have children because they need someone to control, and they need to create more victims. Because a narcissist cannot exist without abuse. They live to perpetuate abuse. They live to carry on that cycle. And for a while, I felt immense guilt, not only because of the things my mother has been through in her own childhood that explain a lot of her narcissistic behaviors, but also for seemingly betraying our best friend relationship and all the good times we had. Because somehow, in my mind, they outweighed all the horrible, terrible things that she had done to me, intentionally, and that she had done to my siblings and continues to do to them. A narcissist is always banking on the fact that you're a child with no choice. And once you stop being a child with no choice, and they have less control over you, they either discard you like trash or desperately try to cling on to you, or both of them, just in a cyclical nature. But that relationship that you thought you had with your narcissistic parent was never real. And I had to learn that for myself, and that was one of the hardest realizations of my life. I'm named after my mother. We have the same name. I genuinely felt like we were the same person for the first 22 years of my life. But this year, realizing who I am inside, who I've always been, who she wanted to push down as much as possible, I've never loved myself more. I've never been more in love with myself. And that may sound narcissistic, but that's not what narcissism is. In fact, narcissists will try to convince you that self-love is narcissism. Narcissism is not self-love. In fact, narcissism is the biggest sign of insecurity that person could possess. Narcissism is bred from insecurity, from feeling like you have no worth. That's how narcissists are bred, a feeling of worthlessness. And this is often not the fault of the narcissist at the beginning. You can't blame a child for their circumstances. But the choice to further expose your own children to that same abuse is a choice. It is not just a product of narcissism. It is a conscious choice that they make every day. And we can't discount their choices. After all, they are adults. They know what they're doing. Why would you want to be best friends with someone who's just out to hurt you? That's what I had to think about for myself. Why did I cherish our relationship so much when it was simply transactional? It was something my mother needed at the time, so she used me for that. She had no one else. I became her confidant, her best friend, her everything, as long as I abided by her rules, as long as I abided by her view of reality. But the moment that you call out their crazy view of reality for what it is, the mask drops. And I actually haven't seen my best friend since her mask dropped. She's never been that person again. It's almost like she has memory loss or dementia. But this is all on purpose. It's because that personality that they were trying to persuade you they had was never real, and they couldn't keep up with it. The biggest fault of a narcissist to themselves is that they are human, not artificial robots who can keep up a facade for as long as possible. And that's when her act started to dissolve in my mind. Although it was a crushing realization that she was never who I thought she was, it was a freeing realization. I didn't have to feel guilty or indebted to that woman that I once knew, because she was never real. She might have fooled everyone around her, but at the end of the day, I was the one who was able to see through her bullshit. And that left me stronger. So don't feel guilt. That's what they want you to feel. Just feel happy that you were able to escape, that you were one of the smart few to see through their act. You were one of the people that they desperately feared. And yes, they desperately fear you. They fear that you're going to expose them for who they really are, because they've been working their entire lives to build a reputation that they see fit. So yes, be proud of yourself. You were able to break free from them. You were able to see through their disguise. And that's not a thing that many people are able to do. A lot of people have such an intense bias towards their parents, they're not able to see them for who they really are, even if it's at their own detriment, even if it's putting their own safety at risk. So I implore you, don't put your safety at risk for these people any longer. Don't help them. Don't be their shoulder to cry on. You don't have to be that. All you have to be is yourself. All you have to do is live your own life. That's how you break free from a narcissist's grip.